Hey, how you guys doing? Welcome to Alotta Hats podcast. I am your girl, Christina Faith.
And a brilliant dummy.
Hey, and we are out here on episode 105.
Five episodes.
I gotta do the punes next time. All right, today we're gonna be talking about being single and anxious.
Woo.
Pun intended. Go on Amazon, check out our series, Single and Anxious.
Plug.
But I also go to Amazon, purchase my book, Single and Anxious. Dad, where's the book so I can be like, Single and Anxious?
There will be a link in the description too, so make sure you click on it and buy and subscribe and watch.
This is hilarious because this is Tiayrra's favorite topic.
No, it's not.
This is Tiayrra's favorite topic. She went on a whole Twitter rant recently.
Says the woman who has a book and a whole series
and I keep
on
trying to
run
from it.
See,
you got me going.
We gonna talk about it. So while we're at it, let's jump into like what was your journey and like what made you write a book and start a series called Single and Anxious?
Because I was an emotional hoe.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I was not expecting that.
You said my journey. Listen, I was an extremely sexually active child. And I had boyfriends and not boyfriends. I had Johns growing up. And by the time I got to college, it was really bad. Oh God, me and my friends.
Why?
We wasn't thotties.
Okay.
But we was players. Like we had games and stuff. Like who can get the most numbers? Like what's your count? And my journey was a little bit different because I was the virgin in the group, and so they protected and guarded my virginity. It was very weird. Always in the back of my mind, I had, we need you not to have sex before marriage,
to do right,
so that we have something to tell our kids.
So what? But wait, go back because you just said you was very sexually active as a child.
I think people think sexually active is just having sex.
Okay, so
you could be
define
kissing
it.
And touching and rubbing and licking. You can do all that.
Okay.
And still be a hoe. And not do, because I think the way that we have defined being a hoe. So let me define hoe, right? Because people are like, I was not no hoe. When I define hoe, I define hoe biblically. Right. And it can be male and female hoes.
Talk about it.
And so I think oftentimes when I think about hoe, we think about female, and not realizing there's a lot of hoeing men in this world.
Lots of hoeing men.
And so for me, a hoe is anything or anyone that I give my emotions over to that I don't give it to the Lord. Right? And so he often in the Bible calls Israel a hoe. You
many
whore,
times.
you scout, you harlot.
Many times.
You over and over. You keep giving your love over to another.
Many
and so when
times.
I say hoe, I mean I gave my love, my heart, my emotions over to another. Right? Whether it was the Lord that I wasn't giving it to or my future husband. Right? And so so
that's a good definition. I think I'm a hoe too, y'all.
Listen, there are levels to this hoeing.
There are.
Right? There are levels to the hotels, right?
Because
oftentimes we look down on other women,
absolutely,
and other men that are hoes,
right?
That are proud to do the slut walk, the walk of shame. What is it called? Slut walk?
Shame. Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, but I think when we look at somebody who is explicitly overly sexual, right? We demonize them, right? Instead of being like, oh no, you a hoe too. Like if that's how you're defining being a hoe, you're a hoe too because you give your affections over to someone else that is not your husband or wife or the Lord, right? And so, in college, I was all over the place. Like we would have like what we call like the starting five, and then we would have the bitch.
The bitch? You had a 6 man?
No, I had 10. It was bad. It's bad. I'm juggling 10 guys.
You was like,
and so
you were juggling 10, like just talking to 10 different people.
Yeah.
How? That's why you like teams so much.
No,
why? She can master teams, y'all. Did you hear what the lady just said? Wow. Oh my gosh. Okay.
So and it became a little bit too much.
Wow.
Not because so it was pride, right? It was definitely pride that this is the reason why we were doing this, right? And it's almost like Jasmine Sullivan in Hotels. There's a song that said, or a line that she says is, y'all dudes be making us pretty much become hoes. And so in a lot of ways, I think a lot of that happens because you get your heart broken by someone and you're like, well, if that's what you want to do, I'm gonna go over here and do this, because you're really trying to hurt them, but you're really hurting yourself. And so I fell for the jump off. I fell for the jump off,
bro.
and I started praying, y'all. Well, think about the Lord before.
Yeah.
No, for real, because I was jacked up. He put it, you ain't got to go all the way to get sprung.
Absolutely not.
You ain't got to go all the way.
Right.
And so, I fell for the jump off. The one that I knew that I couldn't have a relationship with. I could have had a relationship with like 6 out of 10 of them. But for me, a relationship meant commitment, and I was scared of commitment. And so when you're scared of commitment, it's easier to juggle multiples than to be just with one, because with one I have to commit to having sex with you back then, right? I have to commit to going places with you. I have to commit to people knowing that we together. I didn't want people to know, because then there's an expectation for that. And then oftentimes you don't want the one that wants you, and
always
so the one that
wants you,
that was cool with being on the DL, that's the ones I wanted out in the public. The ones that I didn't want, they the ones, oh my God, y'all, let me tell you.
Such is life, man.
So I ended up, I'm messing with this deacon. I was messing with this deacon. Turns out he was a deacon in the church. And I was like, how? Like, and I was not a believer. I had a toe in the church.
Right.
And then when I found that out, I was like, but what?
Wow.
It's like, yeah, I have to go to church today. He was Haitian too. I have to go to church. Yo, I'm sorry, Alan, if you listen to this. And so I had nicknames for all of them. Get this book, y'all. And so in the book, what happened was, the reason Single and Anxious came about is because when I got saved, I made a vow to the Lord. I will not mess with anyone who is not my husband. And so, back in the day, they told us dating was the devil and all kinds of stuff. But even for me, I read this book called Emotional Purity. And it broke down what it meant to give your emotions over to someone. And that even your emotions are something that is for your husband. And so I was like, you know what? That's true. And I am single and I am anxious.
Wow.
And so I started blogging about being single and anxious and how to keep your heart pure and how to
you was tweeting too about it.
Oh, I was tweeting. Oh, I got a lot of my Twitter following came up because single and anxious. Right? Because I was always tweeting about relationships and keeping your heart pure and identifying it. Like for females, women, when you walk in a place and you see a guy and you be like, is that him? Is that my husband? Or you know somebody for a while and you've already moved into the house, picked up the wedding dress, figured things out. You in a relationship and he over here talking to somebody else.
Right.
And so what you're doing is you're emotionally impure.
Right.
And so my journey in singleness and so I think it was that 2004, I made that vow to the Lord. I messed with a couple guys. I didn't kiss any guys. And I almost came close a couple times. I can't say some things. And so it was bad, right? It was bad, but at the same time, in that journey, I realized what I wanted and what I didn't want. And I realized how to say no and how to set boundaries. And it was the Lord saying, wait for me, right? To the point where after a while, you either drive yourself crazy wanting a relationship thinking that's going to change stuff.
Right.
Or you just become content. And I just became content after a while. And I was like, you know what? It's cool. Because I was also dealing with being extremely emotionally attached to somebody I was working with. I was having dreams. It was bad. And I did everything possible not to be emotionally pure with it.
Yes.
I gave him money to go take girls out. I let him take my car to go pick up the joint he was messing with. I did everything to be emotionally separated because now could I have dated him? I could have married him. I didn't want to marry into his family. And so that was something I was like, this is of the devil. And so in that, I learned how to tame my emotions and not let them master and rule me. Just because you have visions, just because you can see something, just because you are praying for someone. And sometimes our prayers can be very emotionally, lustfully driven. And we say it's praying, but what you're doing is you're coveting. And so through that process, I was like, yeah, no. So by the time I met my husband through Facebook, we met in 2006. We didn't start actually talking about anything relationship-wise until 2009, 2010.
Wow. So
and
you guys
so
just friends first.
Yeah, and so what somebody told me is interesting. This woman told me one day, because I wasn't messing with this guy, but it was evident that he was going to try to holler at me. Mm-hmm. And she said, and she knew him, like this was like one of her mentees. She was like, don't settle for him. The one that you'll marry will call you lady, right? And I was like, this is really interesting. But I was like, I'm glad you told me about him, because he was crazy. Anyway, he turned out to be gay, as well as propagating as a pastor.
Wow.
And so, and I had a lot of counterfeits. Like I had a lot. And I had some counterfeits that really were good. Like I had some guys that I really was interested in, and they turned out to be really good, believing Christian men, married with kids now. But I'm so thankful the Lord didn't give me them.
For you,
right? Because is it someone that's good for you, right? And so for me, my journey of singleness was really learning how to purify my heart and being able to say, for example, I learned that through living with my best friend at the time, just how selfish I was and just how selfish she was too, right? And I tell people that if you want to be married or you want to be in a relationship, you should have roommates, right?
Or a business partner.
Well,
one or two.
Yeah, you can do business partner, but it's a little different with a roommate because you can't run from them.
Yeah,
right?
That's a whole nother level. You
still got to come into the same house.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And so with a marriage, you can't run. You can, but if you really want a healthy one, you can't run sooner or later. And so I'm always talking about singleness because I really be trying to get my single brothers and sisters free. Yeah. Because let me tell y'all, marriage is a blessing, but it is not everything you guys imagine. Because what I realized once I got married is that everything that I thought was marriage was what the TV taught us. Like, this is what intimacy would look like. This is what love would look like. If he don't love me like an R&B song, he ain't right. And the issue is with the R&B songs is they wasn't loving nobody like them R&B songs. These are just figments of our imagination.
Right, segment.
Yeah, so
what did your, what did contentment look like for you, practically?
Practically, it looked like, Lord, I'm okay to never be married. That was contentment. If you do it, amen. If you don't, I'm good. And then it also looked like, somebody asked me, well, what do you want? Like, what are you looking for? I said, I just want a man to love Jesus more than he loved me. Literally. Because if you love Jesus more than you love me, then you won't make me an idol. And you won't encourage that I make you one as well. Like, I saw a lot of relationships that were trash. And then that you won't quench the fire that's inside of me, and I won't quench what's inside of you as well. Because oftentimes I see people get married and then like what they were productive at before, they just be like, right? Because then you be like, oh, I got a husband. And yes, your ministry is to your home, but when you get together, it should be like a combustion. It shouldn't slow you down. It should actually speed both of y'all up because you're together. And so contentment for me really looked like, it's okay if I never get married. It's okay if I don't get held. It's okay. Like, that does not define who or what I am as a human. Because oftentimes we have in the church specifically, or even in American society, we have made marriage a pinnacle of life. And it's not. Right? It is, because, people die. Like, this ain't guaranteed.
Right.
Sooner or later, one of us gonna go.
Right.
Sooner or later, we gonna get on each other's nerves so much we're gonna want to leave each other. Like, there will be those thoughts. So, I think my journey as a single was not accepting, whatever came my way, even if it looked good on the outside. Right? Because I think sometimes we take what's given and we settle, and then you be messed up and jacked up. Yeah. So tell me about Joe. You still a single?
I'm still in the boat. Wow.
Man, and just the way you said it, singleness ain't a disease.
It's not. It's a part of life. It's a prerequisite. Like we're all single. Before you get married. So it's not like it's just where I'm in. I'm not connected to someone or committed to someone. But my journey, I guess by that definition, definitely been an emotional hoe.
Just
out here.
So
So like,
you need to let that breathe.
Yeah, right. I'm like, man, I'm a hoe. I done discovered something new today.
Well, and I don't want to offend other
No,
people.
it's okay.
Because some people be like, well, why you gotta be out?
But that's a good thing to talk
For me,
about
that's how I
emotionally.
define it.
Yeah, we
Emotionally.
don't talk about the emotional side of things, especially just like women. Like, we are emotional. Like, we get that emotional connection with a dude.
You come in the room and you done created
Yeah,
a whole...
and you're like, man. So similar. Like,
I met someone. Well, did he meet you too?
Right? No, he didn't. So I've been single. I've actually never been in a relationship.
Me too. I never committed to
before
anyone
you met your husband. Wow. Okay. Yes, I've never been in a relationship. Something right. Them little grade school boyfriends. But never been in a relationship. Still a virgin. Still waiting. Trying to wait for marriage. So y'all keep me in prayer.
Holding on to the horn.
Man, God's a keeper. But
he kept my little hoe himself. I was about to
I definitely have had emotional attachments to. I mean, there have been like 2 significant long friendships in my life that have been emotionally connected that I've had to like let go of. So, but I've always like. I've had like 3 type of category of guys in my life, especially and a lot of it has revolved around like my virginity and sexuality and those things, and not wanting to like go that far in a relationship. And so I would get guys that like, they would find out, I was a virgin, I was waiting until marriage, and they're like, oh, I gotta go. Peace. You know what I mean? Like,
some stories I can
my mom on the other end.
I can only put in shows.
Right. Like, so I would get that type of guy. Or I would get the guys that be like, oh, word, like, oh, I respect you even more. I like that, but then their motive was to stay around long enough to try to like break me down and be like, oh, I'm a conquer you, right? And
so
then
you be letting people in your life for a while then.
I mean, I'll test you out, but it's like when you realize you're not going to get what you thought you could, then it's like, oh, I'm out the door too. So, and then I would get the guys who are like, man, I respect that, I love that, I'm not there. You're a good girl. You in the friend zone. You my home girl. And
it's great though. It's such a protector.
But then that was the the friendship, the emotional part. I still want you in my life. I know, like, I don't want to take it there with you, but like, let's be friends. And then that's where the like typically those tight emotional bonds came from. And so that's kind of like just where I've been, and it's I don't know. That's still where I'm kind of at. I think after a while, there did come a point like in my mid-20s where I was like, man, like, this probably ain't gonna happen. You know what I mean? So I just started like compromising in little ways and doing things, not to see how far I could go to the line without fully going over, but just like, yo, nobody, and then you start getting, ain't nobody marrying you without, the whole test driving. How you gonna know it's good?
Said, don't know nigga wasn't no puss in the bag. I said, well, he gonna get this puss in the bag.
Right, we
gotta test this. Either
like you a car, so you get that. That's a whole other thing of just like test driving, and I'm like, first of all,
and it has a good reason, but it ain't God.
It's truth, because when you have had multiple experiences, then you will have something to compare to. But if I have no one to compare this man to, it's going to be better than the none I've been getting. I know that, you know what I mean? Like, 'cause I ain't getting none.
Hopefully.
You know what I mean? Hopefully.
But even in that, the purpose of it is to grow, to learn how to please
you're gonna have to grow.
You gotta grow, because even if they got experience, that don't mean got experience in pleasing you.
Exactly. And that was even kind of tied to like why we started in the first episode with the, what was it called? What was the show called?
Oh, the little show,
Married at First Sight.
I like the other one though.
Which
season?
The
one, no. I like the one in the box. What was the show in the box on Netflix? Where they in the pods, they met each other in the pods.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about, but I don't know what it's called. But that was one of the issues in the show, right? The guy didn't want to stay committed to the girl who's a virgin, because like, I don't want to have to like be able to teach you, and I
don't want to grow with you sexually.
Yeah, and I'm like, but you would rather another man do that and then bring her to you? Like that and some people live that type of life where they like, hey,
Tatum Chandler on I Am Athlete, he was like, Did you marry a virgin? No. Did you? Mm-hmm. He's like, yeah, so somebody else been up in that. Right. Or if she ain't with you right now, somebody in that now, right? Mm-hmm. And so, and men don't like to think about that.
Yeah. Some don't.
But they want you to be experienced.
Yeah, which I don't know how you're going to do that. But, that's where it's at. I think in my journey, I've experienced every stage of grief. I'm not sure. Your singleness?
So you haven't fully embraced it.
And it's not a grieving, but it's acknowledging a void. And, I was reading through, it's in like Genesis 2, right? When God is telling Adam to like name these animals, right? But his sole purpose in telling him to name the animals was to show him like there was a void in the companionship for him. And so by him like, hey, naming this now, like God created a void in Adam. That doesn't mean that. So, and that's another thing too, where like sometimes people who are single and others looking in, it's like, oh, like, why are you struggling single, or why do you desire, or you're making this an idol? But it's like, if God has created a certain void in you, it's not to just like diminish it, but it's to show I have more for you and I want more for you. And so him showing him like, yeah, there's a void in your life. Let me fill it though.
Yeah, but he filled it with purpose and caring for the earth.
But practically he filled it with a wife, with a woman. Yes, you know what I mean?
I think the problem with that is that even if you get a wife and you get a woman or you get a husband, you'll still have a void.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like it's not just voids, but it's needs, right? We have emotional needs, we have physical needs, and so I think the issue is we think a spouse is going to fulfill every need that we have. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, there are certain needs physically that only your spouse or whoever you're mating with can fulfill. You know what I mean? And so I think the issue is, yeah, we get a spouse and we get somebody and we're like, hey, you fulfill all my needs. And it's like, nah, there's going to be specific needs they can do, but they can fulfill all. And so even God showing is like, yo, yeah, I've created this void so that it's not a sin to have a void or feel like, yo, something is like missing in my life. I think the issue comes when we try to fill it healthy or we try to fill it in an unhealthy way. You know what I mean? That becomes the problem. But experience it in and of itself is not like wrong. So when I say like I grieve, like, yeah, there is a part of me that, I have all these other things going on in my life and finding my purpose. I have all these things, but it's still like, yeah, there's only something that a spouse can fulfill, because they're like practically physical needs that I can indulge in them, but I choose to restrain myself in doing that, and only a spouse will allow me to be able to do that. Yeah, but you know what I mean?
I think the issue with that is what if you never get married?
Then I think it's a burden that I'm always going to have. Until I'm in heaven.
Well, I think if you look at it like that, then you approach it as though God is not enough in this season. Even though you may not be saying it or thinking it, because here's the issue.
But what does that mean for God to be enough?
Because God can fill all of those. No, he can't. You know,
physically. Yeah, he can't fulfill that.
But even in that, you're expecting your spouse to do something that they might not be able to do for a while.
I'm just saying, it's needs too, because you got to think like, right, Adam was in this perfect state, right? This is before sin, so we can't, because we like to blame stuff on like the fall.
But we can't even use Adam and Eve fully, because there are not enough men and women in the world in order for everyone to have a spouse.
But that doesn't mean everybody even desires marriage.
More people want spouses than not.
And I think but everybody doesn't though. So you can't say there's not enough.
More women,
because some people don't.
More women. I know more. I got more single friends than I got married friends.
It's men out here.
I got less unmarried men.
It's women out here. I'm just saying, like, everybody. That's the thing too. Like, everybody doesn't have that desire.
I think more people than we're willing to acknowledge do.
That's fine though, but there are some who don't though. There are women who don't desire marriage. There are men who don't desire. Do we know all the numbers and statistics and villages and people who exist? Like, no. I think if along the way, and that doesn't mean that even if you do have the desire, you won't. And that's where restraint comes in.
Doesn't mean that he's gonna fulfill that.
Yeah, it doesn't. But that's where the restraint comes in. And so that will be something that I'm going to have to continually restrain myself if that doesn't happen. It doesn't mean it's just going to go away and I'm like, you know what I mean? But to say like, and I think that's the issue too, where like, you know, people are like, oh, you better be content and God is enough. But it's just like, but okay.
Because he is. And I'm telling you this
I'm saying in a practical
more
sense.
than I was married.
Right.
And I'm on both sides.
But I always say like, what does that mean for him to be enough? And it's not saying that he's not.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
What doesn't mean that God is enough?
I've had this, I've had that. But what I realize is that what I need more than anything is my connection with Jesus. Right? Because even if you get this, I'll be trying to help you.
But it's not just like even if you get a spouse. Yeah, but I think we gotta too like and I'm think about those gray areas. Right. But I think there are some gray areas when it comes to like really like what does that mean to say like, yeah, God is enough and to be content, right? And just what that means.
No, because what you mean? Because even when you get married, no, it's the same. Let me tell y'all,
I think it's the same
thing. Even when you get married, you're going to have to learn how to be content in being married.
Absolutely,
that
absolutely.
This is the only one.
Absolutely,
right? That when your thoughts want to go over this, you got to bring them back. Right, but even in
and
that,
that's that self-restraint again. You know what I mean?
Even in that, I have to be content that if the Lord takes him, Lord, you're still enough. Or if the Lord takes me from him, Lord, you're still enough. Because nothing in this earth is promised.
Right.
But death.
Right.
Right. And I think that's the hard thing about being single is because it does look better from the other side. But when if a proper married person, right, who has a balance and understanding will tell you this is not the pinnacle of life. All of your needs will still not be met. You're still going to feel voids in life because that person can't fulfill a quarter of them.
Right. Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, that's the issue.
Not
marriage. I'm saying the issue is, right, people thinking your spouse fills all these needs. You know what I mean? And when you're not healthy enough to understand and recognize, like, yeah, I'm going to go into, like, there's certain purpose things or financial things that a spouse might not be able. And so I think that's the issue. It's not the marriage in itself, is that people go into it expecting you to fulfill this. And it's like, when you don't understand that, like, no, there are needs that I can only get spiritually that I'm not going to get from you. And I know that. And you're right, but I'm saying most people go into marriage not being healthy, not being prepared, and not knowing that, like, oh, I shouldn't be looking for this expectation in a spouse that I need to know how to fulfill by myself. Because most of your needs, you got to fulfill and find ways healthy to fulfill on your own. And that's the issue. So I don't think like
for you, what would marriage open up in purpose for you?
In purpose? Nah, I don't know.
But that's the thing. But that's what I'm saying.
What do you mean by that?
In purpose, what will marriage do for you? Not any let me tell you. He could. I know people that this has happened to.
Yeah.
2 months into your marriage and he dies. Right.
Yeah.
3 months and 3 years into your marriage and he becomes sick. And all of those things that you married him for.
Yeah.
He can't do any of that.
That's
he
true.
is invalid and completely dependent on you.
That's true.
Right? And so when I say, when you want to get married, this void, what purpose does it fulfill besides your sexual needs? Because
yeah, right. I mean, to be honest, that's the one need.
As much sex as you think.
Yeah. Well, especially at my age,
in the beginning. But that's what I'm saying. That's a Western, as well as a cultural concept. Is that
I ain't getting older. My energy, I be needing vitamin D and C. Better hurry up, bro.
But what if the Lord waits till you 50?
I mean, I don't know these questions. I'm gonna have to day by day get there on that journey. Like, and to be honest with you, the only need that I could say is just the physical right now.
And so,
because there are other things that, like, I'm fine with. I'm fulfilled in, and I get what I need to get by.
Yeah, because the D gonna run out.
It is.
The D ain't gonna be able to get up all the time, right? You ain't gonna be able to get up all the time.
And that's why, I mean, I don't think you should like marry solely for that. And it's a lot, even still, like I'm learning what my needs are. And so that's why I don't want to just throw something out there just for the sake of answering the question, because there are a lot of needs that I'm discovering that I do, like, you know, just what does Tiayrra need? You know what I mean? And those things that are continuing to evolve as I try to like be healthy before I even go into a marriage. Because there is also, now on the flip side, there's that part of me who loves my freedom and loves my singleness and loves just getting on a plane and going where I want.
You ain't got none of that.
Yeah. And so sometimes it's
you might
that
get a
like,
spouse that won't go with you everywhere you go.
Yeah.
You can't move.
So
you on CBS, I'm coming.
Right. So sometimes it is that struggle of like, man, but I don't like, I know just trying to upkeep friendship, you know, like you said, roommates and friendship and business, like just the struggles and that. And that's the thing too, like you can learn so much.
All your other friendships,
right.
And relationships.
And you can learn and that's the thing too, where a lot of people, like we have this misconception of like, oh, I need to like learn about myself or just other things if I'm in a relationship, like a romantic relationship. But a lot of lessons you can just learn with platonic friendships, through your sisters and brothers, and you know what I mean? Like you can learn a lot of those lessons with your everyday friendships. And so it's, you know, I mean, that's, you know, I have both of those sides. I have those times where, yeah, like the voids, the burdens are strong, and I'm like, man, this is something that I do desire. And then we start saying stuff like, oh, we'll just take the desire away, or I don't, you know what I mean? Like foolish stuff. God is not going to do that if he gave that to you. But then, yeah, it also calls for restraint to say like, yeah, I could go out and fulfill that void myself and get this instant gratification or whatever. But I just simply choose not to, because I do think that if God does purpose for me to be married and have children one day, that they are worth this weight. They are worth the restraint. They are worth the loneliness and fighting through those things so that I can just be better prepared to disciple my own children and be that you know, like I always say, like I don't just always want to have to look for an example outside of my home for my children to follow or my husband to have. Like I recognize that God has given me this opportunity, if he would so choose this, to see me married, of like learning what to do through obedience and not sacrifice. And I think there are so many other relationships and people in our lives where, yeah, you could learn a lot from the mistakes of full, right? We learn a lot from others sacrificing, but it's very rare that we get to learn from people's obedience and saying like, yo, I know this journey is tough. These are some of the roadblocks you're going to watch out for. Emotional connections, like watch out for you know what I mean? So that I could just, hopefully they take this same route, you know, because they're just, it's so much drama connected to it to begin with the emotional connection and physical connections, that it's just like, I don't want to have to add any more drama to my life and stress, you know what I mean, by adding those dynamics. And so, you know, I do think the journey is worth it.
That's what I'm saying. I think there's a book called Sacred Marriage, and the premise of it is, what if God designed marriage to make you wholly not happy? And what people don't realize, huh?
Yeah, you hear that a lot.
But no, it's very true.
What was the name of the book?
Sacred Marriage. And it was the first book that I read as a single that opened my eyes up to what marriage really is. Marriage is designed for you to live a life of sacrifice and obedience to one another and submission to one another. AKA, it is a death trail, right? And
I think everything's a death trail.
Nah, it's a different bit. It's a different death.
You think it's so? Then there's a difference between marriage and singleness.
Oh yeah,
because single people
when you
in your journey,
and you gotta die to yourself, it affects yourself, right? It may affect others around you, but when you want to go and get on that plane, you can go get on that plane. When you're married, you then have to say, "Hey, I was thinking about going here. Well, I don't want you to go anywhere now." And he might not have an answer, or you might not have an answer for him. And guess what you got to do? Not go nowhere. Well, hey, I think I want to get this light. I don't think it's the right time for us to purchase this light.
All right.
Hey, I like this house. I don't like that house. Hey.
Yeah.
Basic stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, honey, can we replace
Right.
Is that light? No, not yet. I think I want to do inset instead. And this is the actual example.
These are things, yeah.
And so what you don't, that's why I tell people, enjoy your singleness if you have a desire to be married. Yeah. Because you will never get that freedom again.
Yeah.
Singleness is not a disease, it's a cure. It's a cure. Because that's why I say you grieve your singleness. And because when you grieve something,
not all the time.
But I'm saying, but when you grieve something, you're actually missing something that ain't there. Right? But normally in that grief it can be real. I'm not saying that it's not real, because I definitely had some grieving. But I think as you mature in the Lord, you then begin to embrace it. Yeah. Right? Yeah. As opposed to,
I mean, because a stage in grief is acceptance. Yeah, so
because it might, that's why I be like male or female. It might not happen it might happen tomorrow. You might meet him and be like, yay, praise the Lord. Right. But then sometimes the Lord, the way that the journey is set up, is he'll say, you know what, no. Or you got a desire for kids, and he'll be like, no. Right. No.
Well, I think that stuff y'all should figure out before you even marry somebody.
Not him. The Lord.
Oh, yeah.
Or he'll say stuff you can't. Or he'll use, now I'm saying he might not say no, but he'll use the no's of our bodies in order to make us run and chase after him more. Right? So now you wake up and you like self-care. Now you wake up and you just want to spend a day in the bed. Just, I don't feel like talking to anyone for 3 to 4 days.
Right.
Sis, that don't happen no more.
I understand that. So like,
enjoy it.
I do, and that's why I say I enjoy it. And part of that process is like, understanding myself more. Understand, like, one thing I always do, like, I write down my pet peeves and. You know what I mean? Just things that you notice through other things. It's like, okay, I'm recognizing my own red flags, and even things that I see like in others that are like, you got to be aware of yourself but on either side.
You should, and you really should.
But, you know.
But it's going to be more.
Yeah, definitely. I think either way, listen, you're going to have.
Two becoming one is hard.
Yeah, it's hard. But I think either way, you're going to have hardships and things to overcome as a single, and you're going to have hardships and things to come over as married. You know, so, and I definitely get what you're saying.
And one is no better than the other.
Yeah, exactly. Not one is, so to make it, you know, because then.
That's the biggest thing that I want people to know.
Right. People will take what you're saying, but then be like, well, you know, they will make the distinction, well, this is better, this is worse. But it's like, you gonna have to go through things and self-denial and sacrifice and all of that and submission to the Lord, whether you're single, whether you're married. You know what I mean? Wherever he chooses to put you, whatever path, like you said, ultimately is going to have you become more like him. And that purpose, what we talked about in the previous, episode, he'll put you on that path. So if he feels like you being single is what's the best, wisest route for you to become more like him.
And I don't think the Lord decides if you stay single or not.
I don't think he does neither.
You're going to get married whenever you want to whatever nigga you want.
And I think people, will be waiting, especially within the faith community of like, you need all these signs and all this and that. It's like, you do need wisdom, but I think we over-spiritualize so much.
Well, some of it is over-spiritualized, but a lot of it is just protection.
Yeah. So it's like, if you meet somebody, there could be endless people that you can find a connection with and be like, I could do life with this person. So this idea that like, it's only one person for me and I gotta like,
you might have 6 in line.
You could. You had 10.
I had more than 10.
Almost. You know what I mean?
In my waiting is a nice amount in my waiting. I just said no.
Right.
Because purposes didn't align. Or I just, I see the signs early and I'm like, I'd rather wait.
Right. And it's more too than just somebody. Now, faith is the foundation of it. You know what I mean? Of you linking up with somebody, but it's so much more than that. Like, just because you're a Christian don't mean we compatible or I even like you. You know what I mean? Like, you could be going this way in life, I'm going that way, but then you'll get a whole, like, a lot of people are like, oh, well, as long as he say or she say they love Jesus, then we can do, like, no. I
don't have many of them.
You got physics, you got, it's so many other components. Physics, chemistry, science. Look, you got all these other subjects that you got to bring together and really scale out to be like, beyond you just loving Jesus. Yeah. You know what I mean? Do we have good conversations? Do I like you? Are you fun? Are you boring? Like, you know what I mean? It's so many other components, right? When you finally make that decision, like, better or worse, I could do life with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you make that decision, and you pray, and you go through the Lord, and you have community around you, guiding you and helping you, and you live that out. But like, yeah, we try to make stuff so just weird and mysterious, and I had a vision, and and that stuff can even mess people up too, and be like, oh, well, I had a vision, and the prophet said he, and then that could just send you on a whole nother whirlwind, and then you really end up with like a Joker or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's just like, yeah, all the extra goofy stuff. Just I think it does more harm than like guiding.
Yeah, I think it really you said, what does contentment look like? Contentment literally looks like, regardless of what I have, it's enough. In that season, it's enough.
Yeah.
Because I've seen more people desire it and put timestamps on it and put clocks on themselves and take something that is less than, because of wanting to fill that void, instead of realizing that void should be filled before you get with someone. Because if you have loneliness, you'll have loneliness when you're married. That don't stop. Like, there's plenty of anxious married folk, angry, lonely, discontent, depressed, like all of that stuff. That marriage does not remove any of that, right? And so if you jacked up now, you're gonna be jacked up then. If you got mommy, daddy, cousin, sister, brother issues now, you'll have mommy, sister, daddy issues then. If you have issues with relationships now, you're gonna have relationships when you meet that person, because then you have your issues and their issues, learning how to become one.
So tell me, because I'll tell you, married people do make you want to stay single. And single people make you want. It's weird.
I got a good
married people
now.
Make you, and that's my next question that I'm about to ask you, because you hear that so much, and I get it. You hear that so much from married. That's like, ain't what did. But how has marriage enhanced your life?
Marriage has 100% enhanced my life.
Everything. Right.
So
tell me in what ways.
Dress, the way I love Jesus, the way I love others. My husband is a consistent influence on my life. Right. I am a consistent influence on his life, whether or not we want to admit it at that time, in that moment, when we bring up stuff about each other that we mirrors to one another. Right. Right. And so sometimes I'll receive what he says, and sometimes I won't receive what he says, and then that create more contention. Right. But the reality of all of it is, it enhances you because it reveals who you really are. It reveals it. There are some things that your spouse will never know about you. There's some things you will never know about your spouse. But over time, those things become revealed, right? There's some things that, you'll be able to speak to one another about. You'll be able to pour into other people's lives about. It enhances you. But I think the thought that we have, the reason why most married people are like, you need to calm down, is because the image that you have of marriage is not the image of what a marriage actually looks like. Right? A marriage.
So what does marriage look like?
Marriage more so look like Tyler Perry's "Why Did I Get Married?" Straight up, right? And because it's consistent friction of two people trying to sharpen one another, become one, right? And so though it is beautiful, though you have times of ultimate bliss, and there is so me and my husband, we fit very well together, right? But we had to learn what fits together well and what doesn't. There's some things we just don't do together, right? That we try to, the people, oh, you guys work together, it's so beautiful. We be like, we really don't work together, right? Because we tried it. We have two different processes. We're two different people, but we give each other freedom to do that. Right. And we ask each other, well, what do you think about this? Oh, I think about that. Oh, I'll try it. So that part really works well. He knows what he's really good at, and so he'll say, why don't you do this instead of me? Because I think you're better at, for example, taking care of the finances of the house, right? And so there's so many things that we glean from each other, but the big part of the gleaming is dying to yourself, right? Because in order to receive, you have to walk in humility to say, I ain't enough, right? What I am right now, I can be more. I can fulfill, I can glorify the Lord in every area of my life, right? But a lot of times singles don't see that right now where you are is enough for the season you're in. Yeah. And it might not, male or female, right? happen now. Because what you think you're going to get is you think you're going to get this ultimate bliss and joy, right? And so you're in the honeymoon phase for a while, right? But as the years go on, that stuff died down, right? Yeah. You're not having sex 7 times a week, right? Even though one person may want it or need it, life happens. Yeah. And then if you got kids, that's a whole nother level of it all.
Changing,
And so I think when I say contentment, what I mean, true contentment and devotion to the Lord means it's okay if it's not right now. And then it's okay if it doesn't happen, right? Because sometimes we don't realize that the Lord is protecting us in a season, right? Because if he give it to you now, you might mess it up, right? If the Lord,
you're gonna mess it up anyway.
No.
In some ways,
I'm saying mess it up as in it can't be
repaired.
Right,
yeah, beyond repair.
Because
I don't think you can ever be ready for it. Like, I think there are ways you can be prepared, but it's like some stuff until you get there. You know what I mean? How you going to really know?
There's a preparing though.
Yeah, I'm saying there's practical ways to like make sure you're healthy, make sure you're like understanding you, and because I could say the same journey just in my purpose, right? Like I know you're hyped when you're like, oh man, I finally discovered something I'm passionate about, and then 10 years into it now, I'm like, man, I wasn't as hyped, but I'm still committed, and I'm still like, okay, yeah, there are days that like I'm not feeling it, but this is where I'm supposed to be, so I'm going to put in the effort to, stay on this track. And so you can even, you get that in just how you interact with life in general. Like, you're not going to be in this honeymoon phase of everything, because we're constantly, I like this, you get a new car and you hype when you get the car, and then you pay it off and it's done lost its depreciation. You like, you don't treat it the same way. And so you can learn those same lessons through life in general. So I don't have to get to a marriage to know I know I'm going to be hyped when I first get married, and then there's going to be a time that I'm not.
Because you can't back out of it, right? You put that project down and you come back. There ain't no putting no marriage down. That's why we say it's
I get that point. I get that,
Like there's how you meet a guy and you're like, oh my God, he's amazing. And then 6 months later, you're like, this nigga crazy.
Yeah.
Right? In a marriage, you meet him, it's amazing, but then you realize he got some crazy. And he realized you got some crazy. Right? Or
and you realize that too. Hopefully you realize that before you.
We're always changing.
We're always changing. We do.
We're
That's
always
why
evolving. Because the person that you married, so people use the example of what you look like might not be. So some people, they go backwards, right? Yeah. So they was fat and overweight, and then they get their body and they're right, but their spouse don't. And so sometimes you compare your spouse to where you are, right? Or what you liked 7 years ago is not what you like now. What you did then is not what you do now. And then you have to realize, like, the person that you married, that's not who I married. Because everyone is evolving and changing, right? Or going backwards, right? And so I think true. And that's why I say, I think people, so no, do I say, oh, girl, you don't need no husband, or girl, you need a husband? No, I say, I pray that the Lord gives you the desire of your heart, right? However, in the midst of waiting, you will never, ever again, unless he died before you die, right? Or you die before he died, have this freedom that you have now.
Absolutely.
Ever.
Absolutely. I agree with that.
There is freedom in marriage, but the two are one. So you have to then consider another over yourself every day, every moment. When I go get some, like for example, I wanted crabs last night. I did not want to ask if my husband wanted anything from the place, right? However, I have to consider him above my own needs. Hey, you want something? No, he didn't. Right? But I asked him. Right. Now listen, my husband, he was out shooting. He came back with pizza. Why you asked me?
That's right.
Well, he was like, well, you said you was getting crabs. Well, what if I want a pizza tomorrow?
Or you just pull up and eat in the car before you go in the house.
Considerate. He is, oh my gosh, he's so considerate. It annoys me at times. I just be like, can you just make the decision? Right? But he really sets the example of considering one. I'm considering you above myself. That's right? Cool. But it's a mutual thing that you'll end up doing. Right. But I have to add. If I'm at the Chick-fil-A, I gotta be like, yo, you want some Chick-fil-A?
No, I get that.
If I'm about to buy a pair of J's and I know he want them, you need to buy them pair of J's too.
Right, yeah.
Or
getting two
or say, hey, I'm getting J's.
Yeah.
Or I want them too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I ain't have to do that when I was single. When I was single,
yeah, that's true. And that's why, like, and I think that's part of it too that like scares me, because I'm like, man, I am so, and I'm used to my freedom. I'm used to 32 years of singleness. So, right, I think about that more, even in our conversation of working with teams, too. Right? Yeah. I'm like, man, like, I just see in my basic business relationships that it's like, and then I think like, man, do I want to be married? Like, I'm gonna have to consider these things. I do, right? And I know it's this friction, but yeah, I'll definitely say enjoy your free. Like, me and my best friend was just having this conversation the other night. Like, especially when like people put on singles, like, oh, you should be here or serving at the church, being here every day. Like, no, like, why are you trying to like clock us down to stuff?
What
like,
annoys you more is not that you're single, is what other people think about you being single.
No, I mean, if
all
I
your rants is about no, but all your rants is about what people say.
No, it's more so, it's just the heart of it, because it annoys me when people forget like that they were single or they were in that spot, and so they forget.
They was probably trash in that spot.
Well, yeah, if you didn't heal, but I mean, it's the same thing, and that's just a culture thing. It's like when you're single, people are like, "Oh, when you going to get married?" Then you get married, and people are like, "Oh, when you going to have kids?" You know. But then, in a way, it's like once we get those things, we forget where we're at, and so we project that kind of same thing on others, right? So when we get married, we're looking at the singles like, "Oh, when you get married?" You know what I mean? You don't, but then a lot of people do that, and that's the thing that annoys me, where people kind of forget like their days and moments when they were single, where it was like, yo, it was really hard, it was tough, you know what I mean? And you don't show that same compassion, because you made it to the other side of that, but it's just like, yo, kind of like remember where you are, remember like kind of how you felt in those moments where you did feel like you didn't feel enough, or you didn't, you know what I mean? That's my only thing, is like, remember those moments, and then how you transitioned and got through that, and God pulled you through that, you know what I mean? And so that's kind of what gets me riled up, when people are just insensitive to just the struggles, you know, going, especially in just like this over sexualized world, not even just this country.
Do you think that when you get married that over sexualization stops?
No, it doesn't, because you're going to have to. I think it actually gets worse. It's probably enhances. You're absolutely right.
Because now you can do something about it.
Right.
And also oftentimes, or people didn't truly die to themselves, and so you masturbating all the time.
Yeah,
right.
And getting other stuff.
That back into your marriage and your pornography.
That's true.
And
that's a whole.
Else.
That's
you're
true.
You're watching shows and you ain't skipping the sex scenes, and now you're all riled up, and
that's
you
true.
know, now lust has entered your heart.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to tell you, that kind of stuff gets worse.
Because
you
doesn't.
Also get tempted more.
Right.
Right, because Satan really don't want you to have a covenant.
Yeah.
And so
yeah,
I think this was a good conversation. I think the Ruth and Boaz, that was actually not what people think it was. And There's no one way to do this. There's no one way not to do this.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that I push in the book is true devotion to the Lord Jesus Christ. Allow the Lord to work on your heart more than you desire a relationship, more than you desire a marriage, more than you desire children, because those things are idols, and those things can become idols.
Yeah, I think they're. Yeah.
And honestly, as a Christian woman, you have even less of a choice, right? Because there are even less men in the church, and so I always tell people, you need to be praying for evangelism in the church, like, cause that's a real thing. Cause I was praying, Lord, if he on the block, Jesus, I just ask that you protect him, that he comes to you. And I know some sisters that their spouses got saved, and then they were able to marry them because they saw heart changes in them. Mm-hmm. And so, but it's a real thing.
Yeah, I definitely think.
Yeah, unless you're going to Yemen or something, and finding the underground Christians.
Yeah, even of a faith thing, I think a lot has to be unlearned that we have been taught, and even with the Ruth and Boaz thing, it has created a lot of passive women, I think. And it's like, taken. Bro, what up? How you doing? Yeah,
you want to sound like an Alicia Keys interlude,
right? It's taking this particular story, right, and these particular nuggets of wisdom, but we've made it doctrine. She wasn't, but that's what I'm saying. Like, some people don't read their Bible because the way that story has been taught to us is that, wait for your Boaz. It initiated thing. Like if you read, like
Naomi
that's why
had
you're
her
like,
in the
did y'all
jar.
read the
Naomi was
book?
like, listen, what I need you to do.
They were plotting
let
on
him
this
know.
man. You know what I mean? And so this idea that, oh, unless the man comes in and initiate, like some guys might be shy. It might need you to go up and say like hi or smile. You know what I mean?
I think that can have two different effects that go up, right? Because sometimes you go up because you're thirsty, not because you're led. And that's the difference. Like, so I know.
As far as someone approaching, yeah.
Because
well,
I know.
You'll check that.
I was about to say, because I know some eligible bachelors that just like, I'm not, right now I'm not even thinking about
Right.
And they got some thirsty ones.
Right.
That be like, hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
Right. And so I think there is.
You have to discern that, but I think in general, people just, I don't know. You don't make necessary actions neither, right? To just be like, say hi. You know what I mean? And
well, do you smile when you out on the streets when they look at you?
Yeah, I do now.
Okay. But
I didn't always, because it's like,
look, it don't matter no more though. Yeah, but even if you don't smile, that shouldn't deter.
It shouldn't, right? And some people can break past that, but I'm thinking just as terms as like us expecting, especially men, to just do every single thing and not take any type of our own like just responsibility or our own initiatives to say like, hey, I know what I like or I know what I don't like, you know what I mean? But we just are just like, oh, he need to come say something to me, or he need to do this, he need to do that. Why?
If he don't come and say it, he not interested.
Man,
right? No, I'm trying.
I don't think that. I don't think, because there's a lot of people that I know are married that the woman like.
She might have said what's
initiated.
Up. Yeah, I'm not the conversation, but then he chased.
Yeah,
right.
Well, he pursues and takes things to the next step. But I'm saying just initiating to begin with. Like, there's a lot of women who like, I went up first and like met him somewhere and said hi.
I think that's not,
Yeah, but people don't even do that. Like, we've been told not even to do that. You know what I mean?
I think it depends on the person, though, Tiayrra.
It does.
And so if you want to do it, you do it. Right?
Exactly.
As long as you're not thirsty.
Exactly.
Don't be no thirst trap now.
It depends on the person, but we take things and we make it a doctrine, and we're like,
some people in some churches take those things, but not everyone does that.
Yeah, not everyone.
Right. And some people will be like,
to your church.
That's what I say. I think you have issues with some of the ways that people project. I do. Not necessarily. And I think it is okay to have those issues, but you don't have to internalize what people say. And how they respond to your singleness. Yeah, but you do have to unlearn it. Yeah, you do have to unlearn it, because if I would have listened to the comments and things in my singleness, I've been would have like just slept with somebody, just did my own thing. You know what I mean? And you have to, have a tough skin and a soft heart when you do something that God has called you and he's like leading you to do, because you want to please him. I'm not concerned about, because the people that are pressuring you to get married and have kids, they're not going to have to marry that man or raise them kids. You're going to be left with the consequences of that choice. You know what I mean? And so you can't let people and just push and rush you into something where it's like, nah, like, people say stuff and girl, your clock ticking and wear this and that, and it's just like you gotta take some of that stuff for the team and just be like, I know where God is calling me. I didn't even consider when people said that. If you know where you are, you know where you are.
Yeah, why
because people gonna do that whether you're single or you're married.
Yeah,
like, that
yeah.
Or you got kids. And people wanna give you ideas about the kids.
But you hear it though, because you're human, and so you're gonna hear stuff. Some stuff gonna hurt you that people say. Some stuff are gonna you know what I mean? Like just hurt your feelings on a basic level. But you gotta know how to like. Sometimes you gotta take the punches and just be like, all right, but I'ma still go. You can throw the stones, but I'm still going to stick on this path. Cause I've had some crazy stuff just said to me. Some people like unknowingly not know, but it's just like,
I just be like, excuse you. All right, whatever.
Fam, if I were to, it's a couple people that I could have just smacked, but it's just like,
well, I think,
and you recognize that some people don't recognize their own worth and their own, and sometimes they're projecting their own fears and their own insecurities on you. Because they've had and it doesn't mean that because you're a virgin you're doing that you ain't like you said, you could be doing all other types of stuff and emotionally connecting yourself. So it still doesn't put you on this pedestal of like, oh, I'm better because no, absolutely not. Because you can have lust and all these things in your heart, you know, regardless. And so I'm not saying that it separates and make better, but it's just like
people say stuff.
They do.
It is.
They do.
It is what it is.
You gotta have tough skin.
Not even tough. You don't even. That's not even
I
true.
think you
You just
do.
need to reply to them or just ignore
or
them.
not.
Or just ignore them. Because, you know, I had, especially if you do this thing, you know, in a way that you really have boundaries. I did not kiss my husband to the altar. And that was like a crazy thing for people. What you mean you ain't? Because I'm not trying to incite lust. I don't have an off switch. Right? I am very on.
So what did you guys do in that dating process? Like what were some of those boundaries that y'all set?
I think we hugged once. Right, we held hands a little bit, and then that became too much. And it was like, yeah, we can't do that. Right? We always had people with us. Right? We were very open about our relationship. We did not close off our relationship.
Right.
Yeah, I think we always had somebody with us. That was you know, third wheel is amazing. Third, fourth, fifth, sixth wheels.
They need theme parks for third wheels.
And you know, third wheels are a blessing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think, and that's a ministry to other people as well, to see that you actually are guarding yourself. Right. But people always say stuff like that. That will never stop.
Yeah.
You have to define how you are going to respond in your life, period. And because sometimes people say stuff and it's the devil that's saying it. But sometimes people say stuff and because you just don't want to hear what people have to say, it may be God giving you some kind of wisdom deep down in there, even though it's not what you want to hear sometimes.
Yeah, right.
And so I think with singleness, I think that as we dive into the journey and the struggles that single people face, the reality is that God is and can be glorified even in your singleness.
Oh, absolutely.
But that is your focus and your hope. The same way that as a married person, God needs to be glorified in your marriage, right? And in you as a person. Because none of it, all of it, right, hinges on this thing that we do not know what will happen in the days ahead.
Right.
Right? And so if we have an eternal hope in Jesus, then we need to have an eternal hope that, Lord, on this earth, if I'm supposed to be single, I'll be single for however long it needs to be. Yeah. And because, you know, you wanting companionship and the person that, you know, you not that God has destined for you, but that you will say yes to may not be ready now. Are you willing to wait as the Lord prepares that? Right. Or are you going to rush? Like it's a choice that we all take. Right. And singleness is a blessing. And people need to understand it is a blessing, not simply because of the freedom, but because the freedom that you have with the Lord. It's amazing.
He cool.
Right? It was amazing.
He cool.
The time that I spent with Jesus was more important to me in my singleness, and it's important now, but the time that the Lord was really able to peel off layers of foolishness in my heart because I could lay on the floor for 3 hours, because I could just, you know, I can hop on a train, go to Chicago, and the Lord would speak to me as I travel. I think that and how I lived as a single was more of a testament to the glory of the Lord than it was to me needing to be loved and needing affirmation from a male figure at the time. Right. And so I think you know, as I always encourage singles, like, I want my single friends to be married. I want them to be married. However, I know the Lord. Everybody ain't gonna be married. Right? It's the ones that don't want it generally get married at first.
True. Yeah. Right. Like, I wasn't looking and then
I wasn't looking. I was like, all right, Lord, we're gonna solo dolo. Right. Okay, I can always adopt. You know, I don't mind being a single mom. You know, my mom did it. Yeah. You know, I can raise them up in the way that they should go. And so I think in that and then understanding the Lord, yes, the Lord said it's not good for man to be alone. However, people will be alone because there is not enough to go around. Like, let's just be very honest. There's gonna be some folks that's gonna be single all their life, and there's gonna be some folks who get single who get married early, and there's gonna be some folks who get married later in their lives. Whatever the Lord sees fit, or however you allow the Lord to work in your life. Yeah. But regardless of your desire, regardless of our desire, because when you marry, you have a desire for children. And sometimes married folks, they let that thing run their entire lives, and that becomes an idol. And then you get your kids, and your kids become more important to you than your spouse. Wow. Right? And so in all of that, finding true contentment in the Lord Jesus Christ, regardless of what season you're in, it plays a point the whole time. That's all I'm saying.
That's true. Yeah.
Like, I want you married.
And I'm finding that that contentment, but not attaching it to a certain emotion too, because sometimes you could be content, but you still feel like, and we had this conversation before, like just because you're like sad and something doesn't mean you know what I mean? That could be just a part of the process. As far as like, if you might see a married couple and you're like, man, you see that and like something in your heart, like, man, I would want that. You know what I mean? You might not necessarily feel sad, but that doesn't mean you're not content, because you might have a feeling of like sadness or something in that moment. You know what I mean? Because some people are like, oh, well, if you're sad, then you're not content. Like Jesus is not enough for you, so do more. And it's always this like,
but what is
this feeling of like, well, you need to do more.
No. What's the motivation behind the sadness? What are you sad about?
I don't know.
See, so emotions matter, right? But you
they
always
do.
have to figure out how to link
what's
it
the
back.
indicator?
So what's the indicator?
Yeah.
Right? Are you mad? Are you sad because you don't have that? Because if you're sad because you don't have that, is that contentment? In that moment, are you content?
Right.
Or in that moment, are you coveting what they have? And you're grieving that you don't have it.
Yeah. But then there might be times where you see it and it doesn't bother you. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I'm learning. I think there are some gray areas.
And when you look at that couple, what are you really seeing?
I don't know.
But that,
I can't say. I'm not going to keep saying I don't know. I did want to ask you a question of what you said earlier, as far as like creating those boundaries and singleness and having people around. And I'm gonna ask another question of like, what boundaries do you have even in marriage, and how does that translate and carry over? But even because you hear that a lot when people are like, with Christians are dating and they're like, well, we had people in community around, we weren't alone. But what do you do in those moments where you are alone to still have self-control? Because I think some people do use accountability in a sense as a crutch not to exercise self-control. Because you can have people around you 24/7, even if it's not like when you tour together. Like, what are you doing when you're alone at home, right? And nobody's around. And so, you know, translating that into marriage, like, what are some of those boundaries that you guys still have, you know what I mean, to just ensure that, right? But I mean, what, right? So then do you just go from having community and people with you to not having it?
No, we still have community. We still have people around.
Right.
Like, we have a roommate, right? And so those boundaries are created in order to protect you from stumbling physically and emotionally, right? That's what those boundaries are for. Those boundaries are also to help you realize that community can help you in order to help you not to stumble, right? When you are home, you need to be honest with yourself. Like, I did a whole blog. Let me tell you, I'm deep in this, right? I did a whole blog. For years, I had to realize I needed to sleep with my hands on top of the covers for a little while, right? Because I had to create the boundary between my hands and touching myself, right? And so that's a boundary that I had to create within myself, right? Knowing I am prone to masturbation because of my previous life, right? And so when I got saved, like, I have the story, I didn't backslide. I ain't do nothing in physical backsliding. I was like, right? But I was very intentional, right? I was intentional with throwing away my toys, right? I had put them under the bed, and they came right back from under the bed. So I had to go outside, put them in the trash can outside, right? Setting a boundary. I am not, if I'm lusting after someone or something, I am not going to look at it. So self-control is setting the boundary and adhering to the boundary. It's the leash, right? The Lord gives us a leash. All right, where you going? Making sure you don't go there. If you have issues with pornography, being honest with brothers that, if you're male, that don't have that issue, right? To hold you accountable, but more than anything, to allow the Lord to unravel that foolishness in your heart. Because the Lord will expose you, right? But the question is, will you be willing to die to yourself? Die to your desire to touch yourself, to please yourself, in order for the Lord to unravel that thing instead of having to expose you, because you just want to do what you want to do. No, that's true. So, I'm only saying that as you, because I see other people, and I see some people too dependent on accountability. Well, because they have a reason.
Now you have a babysitter, really. You know what I mean?
Sometimes you need a babysitter. You gotta
yeah,
realize
but then
everybody
at some
ain't
point,
got to, no,
yeah, but
everybody ain't got it.
It's called self-control, and it's a fruit of the spirit for a reason.
But
and
some people can't. Some people don't have that kind of self-control.
And I get it. For a season, you may need people like, hey, checking in. But I'm just saying, at some point, it's called self-control, and so you should be able to have a consistent character, even when you don't have someone checking in or over your shoulder or saying, "Oh, what are you looking up?" You know what I mean?
But a lot of, especially talking about men, men got more needs than women. Right?
Yeah.
And so you should, however, people have strongholds, right? And so, yeah, you should be able to control yourself and do all this, right? And so, for example, you know, we really tried not to be alone by ourselves. If we were, we left doors open, right? And it's not because, you know, we was just all over each other, but because you are human and you're sinful and you're tempted, right? And so your boundaries and the people around you, yes, you ain't... let your skin rub up, let your hands, it only take a little,
right,
and your whole body be like, yeah. I remember one time, we was driving in the car, right? It was closer to our wedding date, and my mother sitting in the back seat, and Alan's hand brushed up against me while I'm driving. My mother said I looked like I was about to jump out the window.
Oh, gosh.
Right? Because this skin, this flesh is sinful, and it is ready. Right? And it's the same thing, you know, when you're married. You have to make sure that certain people, you know, if a ninja is talking foolishness in my DMs or a period, I'm blocking you. You're not even like we're not even okay. I'll give you one chance if you didn't know I was married, and I'll check you.
Right,
bro. If you do this again, I'm gonna block you. Right? You laughing?
Right? Cause I know. Yeah. Go ahead.
You want to stumble? I don't play.
No, I get it. No, I want you. Yeah.
I don't play. You talk about you want to stumble. I don't. You know, no. if a little harlot is around my husband, he'll be like, listen, you need to back. Listen, we're not doing that, right? Yeah. But some of it is what you allow in, right? Some people too friendly, right? They don't have any boundaries. We're a little bit different in the perspective of the type of business that we have, and my husband has always had more female friends than male friends, and we've talked about why.
How do you deal with that?
I don't have insecurity about it. I don't care. It's what she say?
Yeah, but then some people will struggle, right?
Because it depends on what has happened to you,
right? And it depends on what you've done in your singleness too.
I ain't never did nothing
healing
like
from
that.
Those things, because that was one of the reasons with the last significant male friendship I had, where we had a great friendship, but I had to cut that off because I knew that could be a loose thread down the line if I ever got married. Now, he's married now with kids, but it was just like, yo, this is someone who was my best friend, and I'm confiding in, I can't trust myself down the line. What if I'm having issues in my marriage, he's having issues, and because we're friends and we're used to connecting emotionally, who knows how that could turn out? And so there we just... I can't do male friends.
I have platonic male friends. Yeah, I don't connect
unless we work together. I'm not even going to attempt to unless I work with you. I'm not.
I don't have an insecurity of who he talking to.
That's good, because you trust him first and foremost.
Now, if he betrays my trust, I'm sure there'll be different concepts and consequences, right? But we're open about it, right? And I've never, and I will never. Right, and my husband, he was like, he was mad for a couple of years because I was like, I choose not to, cheat on you. It's a choice, right? It's not like I don't want to or I want to. It's a choice. You choose to be faithful in your marriage, right? I choose not to cheat on you. I could, my sinful flesh. We can all cheat on each other. Like this, you could do this, right? That's why I told movies and series.
You can do this,
right? I choose not to do that,
right?
And I don't want to do that,
right?
I like not worrying about where my husband is. I like him not having to worry about what I'm doing, who I'm doing it with, who I'm talking to. There's a trust. But that trust was built long before we were married. Right? And if I feel uncomfortable with someone, I'd say, I'm uncomfortable with you talking to John. So if he's uncomfortable with somebody I'm talking to, I'm uncomfortable with you talking to them. And then you honor your spouse and you stop talking to them. Right? Some people need, but there are married couples who, if they want, and it's different, right? If they want to talk to my husband, I'll be like, oh, here's his number. And then they put me in a text. I don't need it. It's like, it's out of respect.
I did that. Because I'm always just like, I don't
But then
want...
I affirm you and I say, look.
Yeah.
You can contact him. I don't need to be if me and my husband put everybody in a text that we talk to, like, y'all don't understand.
I did do that,
It would be crazy, right? Because of the type of business that we have and the type of people that we are, we would not get anything done. But there are people who need this boundary and this leash.
Right. There's
a reason why most pastors and leaders and women who speak and stuff like that travel with someone. Because you can be tempted. So I think it's really just good to realize that these boundaries, this leash that the Lord gives you, whether you're married or you're single, is needed at all points in your life. You always need a leash, right? And so it's not a bad thing. And if you see people who are hyper doing that, they got some hyper issues, you just need to pray. You need to pray because there's something wrong somewhere, right? There's a weakness that they have somewhere, and this is how they're trying to manage it. Or they have not been able to get the freedom that the Lord allows them in that area. And so
that's good. Woo, that was a lot, y'all. This is good.
Tiayrra was about to kill me about 40 minutes ago.
No,
so bless the Lord.
Look, I'm going and it might sound raw because I'm in it, and I'm not going to lie about like my feelings. There are times where I do struggle, and I'm like, are you enough, Lord? You don't feel like enough.
Yeah, I get
it
you.
doesn't mean that you aren't though. And so
and
I do have those
that's where you
times
tap in.
Yeah,
right? You tap into the Lord, right?
Yeah.
Because there are going to be times, even when you're married, it's going to feel like the Lord and your husband is not enough, right? But you need to understand that the Lord and your husband are enough. And more than anything, the Lord is enough in any season of your life.
Amen.
Because it builds endurance, it builds character, and every stage of your life, God is using something to make you holy more than anything, to make you set apart, to make you look like him. And so I think we all have to be really mindful that when we ain't walking in holiness, right? Holiness is still a thing, y'all. Right? When we're not walking in holiness and we don't have any restraint, that is when the devil will unleash more than ever before, because you're detaching yourself from the leash that the Lord has given you through his blood. And so thank you guys for coming. My name is Christina Faith. You can follow me at Christina Faith, and you can
follow me at A Brilliant Dummy online. Everywhere. Google it. Yeah.
And you can follow us at @AlottaHats_ on Instagram. We really want you guys to like, subscribe, and view. Share it with your friends. Share it with your peeps. We two black women out here trying to get it. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to our whole team that got it going on.
Everybody.
So
Thank you.
We'll see you guys next time on A Lotta Hats Podcast.
Peace.